mitzvah of tzitzis. Therefore, past many years over the past week, an aspect of the mitzvah of tzitzis, and tonight we're going to discuss something that's really not specific in mitzvah tzitzis, but nevertheless is related to it lahalacha, and that's the concept of ein ma'avirin al ha-mitzvahs, as we'll soon see. The Yissocher Frand Paskins in Orach Chaim Siman Chaf Hey, which is the first siman of Hilchas Tefillin, the Mechaber Paskins, Achar Shalovash Talis Mitzuyatz Yaniach Tefillin Shemalin B'Kodesh. The Yissocher Frand says that one has to put the talis on first, and then one puts on the tefillin. And the reason the Yissocher Frand gives for this is because of the concept of Malin B'Kodesh. Because when it comes to Dvarim Shebekdusha, we try to go up rather than to go down. Malin B'Kodesh, Vein Veridim. That which the Yissocher Frand says that you put on tzitzis before you put on talis before the tefillin, that is muskam lakoil. The reason, however, that the Yissocher Frand gives for this is not necessarily the opinion of everyone. Indeed, the Yissocher says that the reason we put on the tzitzis, the talis, before the tefillin is for an entirely different reason. The Yissocher says, actually two reasons. One is because tzitzis is shakol keneged kol hatera kula, because we know that tzitzis, the minion of the strings and the knots, equals 613, and therefore state in Chazal that tzitzis is shakol keneged kol hatera kula, so memela keneged kol ha-mitzvahs. So therefore we put on tzitzis before talis before tefillin because of the adifas of talis. That's one reason he gives. The second reason he gives is because tadir v'she'enid tadir kaidim. So we have a rule in halacha that any time we have to do two things, and one is more prevalent, the other one occurs more often. So you give precedence to that which is tadir over the something which is eino tadir. Why is tzitzis and talis more tadir than tefillin? The reason is because on Shabbos and Yontif we wear the talis, but on Shabbos and Yontif, tefillin, we don't wear tefillin on Shabbos and Yontif. So memela, tefillin is less tadir, less common, even though it's only a matter of a few days. But nevertheless, tzitzis is neheg 365 days a year. We once spoke out that tefillin is neheg only 300 days a year. That's why there's a remez that on the tefillin, the bias of the tefillin, we have the shin. Shin is b'gematria 300. We once spoke out that there are 300 days which you do put on tefillin, 65 days that you don't. We're not going to get into discussion whether that cheshbon works. Herschel, we took care of that the last time. But be that as it may, tefillin is more, talis is more tadir than tzitzis, than tefillin, and therefore the halacha is tadir v'sheina tadir kaidim. As they state in the Yissocher. The Yissocher Frand offers a different reason. The Yissocher Frand offers a reason of Malin B'Kodesh. So the Meforshim, the Dova Mervava, and the Yissocher Frand, and the Shagas Aryeh ask, they don't understand what the Mechaber is talking about. Malin B'Kodesh, if you want to tell me that tefillin, that you're supposed to go up when it comes to Inyanei Kedusha, if anything, they ask, you should take tefillin rather than tzitzis, because we have a rule. The Gemara says in Masechet Tvachim, Kol ha-mekudesh michaveirei kaidim lachaveirei. Anything that is more kaddish, you have to do first. For instance, if a person, when they have in front of him to shech, a chatas and a shlomim. A chatas is more kaddish than a shlomim. Kol ha-mekudesh michaveirei kaidim lachaveirei. And therefore, if anything, once you're entering, you're bringing up the concept of Malin B'Kodesh, if anything, fakir, you should put on the tefillin rather than the tzitzis first, because kol ha-mekudesh mechaveira is kadem l'chaveira. Tefillin is more kaddish than talis. Technically speaking, you're allowed to walk with a talis into the bathroom. We don't do it because it's a beged ha-miyuchad l'tefillah. But for instance, we do walk into a bathroom with our tzitzis. You're not supposed to walk into a bathroom with your tefillin, because tefillin has a kedusha. So if anything, if the mechaber is already saying al din of mal and b'kodesh, the mechaber should say that tefillin is before talis. So the bir halacha, right over here in Siman Chav Hei, the bir halacha says a very few words, and with this he means for us to understand what the mechaber means. The bir halacha writes over here, shemalin b'kodesh al ha'adam koi shetzorech leilech midarga ledarga u'lis'alais b'kedusha. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. That's what the mechaber means. The mechaber means malin b'kodesh al ha'adam koi. It's referring to the person that he's mechuyev to go midarga ledarga. So what does the bir halacha mean? Adarabah, again, it accentuates the question. It doesn't seem to explain what the mechaber means. So Ritzi Pesach Frank in the Chuvas Har Tzvi in Orach Chaim Siman Chav says that the Mishnah Berurah is extremely precise. Zokter Azay, that klal, that when you have kol ha-mekudesh mechaverei kadem l'chaverei, anything that's holier, you have to do that which is holy first. That's a klal when I have two mitzvahs in front of me, and I'm trying to decide which one I should do first. Should I bring the chatos first? Should I bring the shlomim first? Kol ha-mekudesh mechaverei kadem l'chaverei. But Ritzi Pesach writes, over here it's not an issue of which pa'ula I'm going to do first to an object. We're talking about something that I'm going to do to myself. I'm going to now dress myself in items of mitzvah, in items of kedusha. Memela, what the mechaber means over here is malin b'kodesh al ha'adam koi, meaning when a person is dressed in tzitzis, it's nicer, it's better, it's more choshev than wearing without the tzitzis. But if you're talking in terms of ascending the ladder of kedusha and of holiness, the madrega should be, first I put on the talis, and then after I put on the talis, I go up another madrega and I put on the tefillin as well, which is even more kaddish. That's what the mechaber means. And this is what the Mishnah Berurah means to explain the mechaber. Al ha'adam koi. Because we're looking over here how a person has to ascend the madrega of mitzvahs. So what do? I have to put something on myself. So do I put on tefillin on myself and then put on the talis? No, that's going the other direction. Because tefillin is holier than talis. So first, zok the mechaber, put on the talis, and then go up a notch, go up a madrega, put on something that mamish has a kedusha, because mal and b'kodesh. That's what the mechaber means. Azay zok Ritzi Pesach. They schreibt there. Bazer nemer sha'aklal amasheke mitzvah shenasis begufay shahaguf melubish ba, something that you're going to be enveloped in, something that you're going to be dressed in. V'hu tzorech lehishlabis b'shneim gam yachad, and you have to wear both. Al zeh amru malin b'kodesh v'haynu divrei bir halacha malin b'kodesh al ha'adam koi. Pirish the mitzvah hanasis al kuf ha'adam tzorech liskadish b'shneim mitzvah seilu uliyos mutav b'shneim. The Ritzi Pesach writes, and that should be a lesson to all of us, that when it comes to Inyane Kedusha, we have to start small and ascend up the ladder. Don't go for the gold, so to speak, immediately. We'll talk about this in Mitzvah Hashem at the end of this year. Go b'hadraga, chapnish, go with a seder. Malin b'kodesh ve'emerin. That's what the mechaber means as to why we should put on tefillin, the tzitzis, before the tefillin.
This story applies to the late Amir Stephen, the same day as the event, and also the group itself, how active the event.
No. Binyan Ben is something happens to the Gufa Adam. It's something that you do to the Kain. What's that noise? Okay. Weiter. The Mechaber then writes that since one is supposed to put the talus on before he puts the tzitzis, Zoch the Mechaber that a person has to be careful in maniach kis tefillin b'seich hatalis yihizoyer shelo yanichu hatefillin lamala kedei shelo yifga behem tchila v'hitztarach lahanichem keinem hatalis kedei shelo yaver al hamitzvus. Zok the Mechaber, right after he tells us you have to put the talus on before the tefillin, therefore the Mechaber tells us that a person has to be careful when he sticks his tefillin into his talus bag. He has to make sure that when he reaches into his talus bag, he should reach for the talus before he reaches and hits the tefillin bag. Because if he were to hit the tefillin bag before he were to hit the talus bag, he would be mechuyev to put on the tefillin before. Why? Zok the Mechaber. Kedei shelo yavar al hamitzvus. So here the Mechaber introduces us to the concept of ein mavirin al hamitzvus, meaning that when you are faced with an opportunity to do several mitzvahs, 2 mitzvahs, you have to make sure that the one which you come in contact with first is the one that you do first. Ein mavirin al hamitzvus, and therefore when I stick my hand into my talus bag, I want to make sure to put on the talus first. Therefore, put your tefillin in such a fashion that you pick up the talus before they pick up the tefillin, because if you were to pick up the tefillin before you pick up the talus, then Einochinami, you'd have to put your tefillin on before you pick up the talus. And that's taka the din. The din taka is that if a person got to his tefillin before his talus, you taka put the tefillin on before the talus. And if your guy next to you in shul says, hey, what's going on with you? I know you're tired, but you have to put the talus on before the tefillin. You have to admit to him, I made a mistake. I picked up the tefillin before the talus, and therefore you have to incur the bizyainis and the raised eyebrows of why you're acting in such a fashion, but so be it, because the halacha is a mavir na ha-mitzvahs, mitzvah habo liyodcha al tachmitzana. Rashi brings in Masechta Yuma on the pasuk ushmartem es hamatzais. So Rashi learns al ushmartem es hamitzvais. You have to watch the mitzvahs. Mitzvah habo liyodcha al tachmitzana, a mitzvah that comes into your hands. Don't let it be chometz. Don't delay. Don't tarry. Mitzvah habo liyodcha al tachmitzana. Ein mavir na ha-mitzvahs. Azay state in Shulchan Aruch Arachaim Simin Chafei. That's because of a different thing. When you hit the Shoreish, because there's another halacha of Kol Zman Sheyu Bein Einecha Yushtayim. Therefore, the halacha also tells you you're faced with a dilemma, which the halacha says you have to do the other one first. But in normal circumstances, if you hit the talus, the tefillin before the talus, you have to put the tefillin on. Azay state in Shulchan Aruch. Comes the Mogen Avraham. The Mogen Avraham comes up with a chiddush. The Mogen Avraham says that which the Mechaber says, that if you hit the tefillin before the talus, if you touch the tefillin before the talus, you have to put the tefillin on first, that's only speaking if the tefillin aren't in the tefillin bag. But if the tefillin are in a tefillin bag, then even though you may pull out the bag first, that's not called ein mavirin ala mitzvahs. Why? Because ein mavirin ala mitzvahs means when you have 2 mitzvahs to do in front of you, they're right there sitting in front of you, staring you in the face. You're not allowed to pass one over for the other. Kind is the Mogen Avraham. Tefillin in a tefillin bag is not a mitzvah which is ready to be mekuyim. You haven't picked up the tefillin. You haven't touched the tefillin. You haven't been pegei the tefillin. You're only holding a tefillin bag. Tefillin bag is not tefillin. They're still covered. Memela, that's not called as though the 2 mitzvahs are staring you in the face. And therefore, Paskins the Mogen Avraham. Then B'chi Hagavna, you don't have to put on the tefillin before the talus. Either what's the Mechaber talking about? The The Mechaber says fakert. So Zok the Magen Avram, the Mechaber is speaking in a situation where you didn't have tefillin in the tefillin bag. That's when the Mechaber is speaking. If you touch the tefillin, the Seishi Mamish are holding the tefillin, then you have to put them on first. Meaning there was a time in Jewish history that people were not as affluent as us, they weren't as fancy as us. Today, everybody has their talus bag, their tefillin bag, they're matching, they're plasticized, they're embroidered, they're custom made. How's they? So for us to think, well, what kind of idiot doesn't have a tefillin and tefillin bag? But people sometimes weren't people Pasha didn't have the resources, so you had a bag for your talus and your tefillin all together. So there, the Mechaber says, make sure that you get to the talus first. But if you get to the tefillin, so Zok the Magen Avram. But if they're in a kiss, you don't have to worry about it. Azay Zok the Magen Avram. A chiddush, which would in effect really obviate this entire din. Because today, virtually everybody has his tefillin in a tefillin bag, and therefore you're not going to run into this din according to the Magen Avram. The Bir Halacha quotes this Magen Avram and quotes from Sefer Achrayim that all paskin the halacha is the Magen Avram is wrong. Magen Avram is wrong. In spite of the fact that the tefillin are in the tefillin bag, that's called running into the mitzvah. That's called having the mitzvah in front of you. That's not mechusar maisa, and therefore the din is, in spite of the fact that they're in the bag, if you pull out the tefillin bag first, you must put them on. Azay zok the chaye yodam, azay zok the levush. He brings from several achronim that all paskin not like this Magen Avram. The Mishnah Berurah then quotes a Nishmas Adam, which is written by the Chai Adam. It's on the bottom of the Chai Adam. The Nishmas Adam says, I'll bring a raya not like the Magen Avram. I'll show you that in spite of the fact that something may be covered, nevertheless it's considered ein mavir and al ha-mitzvahs if one does not perform the mitzvah with it, in spite of the fact that something's covered. Where do you see that? Zok the Chai Adam. The Rabbeinu Eliyahu says in Masechta Menachos, we all know the halacha is that several times during davening we have to kiss the tefillin. You're supposed to do this often during the Chayiv Adam L'mashmish B'Tefillin B'Chol Shah. The more you touch the tefillin, the more you're aware of them, the less likely you're to be that you'll forget about wearing your tefillin. Therefore, you have to touch your tefillin. State Rabbeinu Eliyahu, which do you touch first? So after Rabbeinu Eliyahu, you touch the shalyad first. Why do you touch the shalyad first? Because you look at your anatomy when you're going to take your hand to kiss or to touch the tefillin, which one are your pegei tchila? Your pegei tchila in your hand and your arm before you're pegei your reish. Memela Zok the Rabbeinu Eliyahu very good because of the concept of ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. You have to touch and kiss the shalyad before you touch the shal reish because of ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. Here's another example of a mitzvah habola yorchal tachmitzena. You touch, you reach this first, take care of it before you go to the shal reish. In spite of the fact that the shal reish has more kedusha than the shalyad, but nevertheless ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. As they state in Rabbeinu Eliyahu. Forget that. That maybe. But what about Pesachas Yadecha? And that's only a hecker. That's only a hecker for us. The halacha of Chayiv Adam L'mashmish B'Tefillin B'Chol Shah is besides Pesachas Yadecha. You're mechuyev to do that as much as you can. As they say. Besides, B'Yimeihem they wore tefillin the whole day. They didn't go around saying Pesachas Yadecha must be around saying that's the way you're supposed to wear tefillin. We all wear tefillin by davening. That's when we do it. As they zokt the Rabbeinu Eliyahu. Zokt the Nishmas Adam. If that's the case, normally your shalyad is covered. If your shalyad is covered, L'chayra, Zok the Magen Avraham, if something's covered, that's not called that it's l'fanecha. Memela Zok the Nishmas Adam. You see, for this Rabbeinu Elio, not like the Magen Avraham, because in spite of the fact that the Tefillin Shal Yad al Piyover covered, nevertheless there's a chiyuv on them l'mashmish v'hem b'chol shah. Therefore, Zok the Rabbeinu, Zok the Nishmas Adam, it's a right, not like the Magen Avraham.
Friday night you have to make mocha even though the towel is covered because the cover doesn't do anything.
What?
You have to make mocha before kiddush because the towel is covered, the cover doesn't do anything.
See, that's a different din. That's not called the fanecha. In other words, in terms of birchas hanenin, it's not here yet. Besides, there are other reasons why we tell it b'chalas. So now, say something, nishmas adam. That's what you wanted to say? Zok the Mishnah Brura. Svara chalusha hima'ay. Zok the Mishnah Brura. That's Gorash Machas Svara. As I Zok the Mishnah Brura. Mishnah Sodom says it, but the Mishnah Brura argues. Why? Zok the Mishnah Brura. Because there, the mitzvah of touching your tefillin applies even when it's covered. What's the mitzvah to touch your tefillin? You should be aware of your tefillin. You have to make yourself aware of your tefillin, whether they're covered or not covered. Bishleimah, in the case of the Magen Avraham say you can't put your tefillin on when they're covered. So the mitzvah of Hanochas tefillin doesn't apply to tefillin that are covered. That's not called in Mavir ala mitzvahs. Here the mitzvah is what? L'mashmesh b'tefillin. L'mashmesh b'tefillin, even the fact that may be under your sleeve. The svara is not, the taina of the nishmas adam is not a taina. Why? Because here the mitzvah applies even when it's covered. That's no comparison to a case when the mitzvah is only when it's uncovered. Be that as it may, in spite of the fact that the svara is, the Mishnah Brura argues with the svara, but the din, the Mishnah Brura says, is not like the Magen Avraham. Because so many Achrayim argue with the Magen Avraham, the din is, in spite of the fact that your tefillin are in a tefillin bag, if you take out your tefillin bag before your talis, Zok the Mishnah Brura, halach l'maisa, you have to put your tefillin on first. Zok the Mishnah Brura. People are going to wonder. It's a shaila of kavod abrius, perhaps. It's going to be an embarrassment. But Zok the Mishnah Brura, many achrayim say that kavod, that ein mavir al mitzvahs is a deraisa, and therefore to be mavir al mitzvahs is a violation of a din deraisa of mitzvah bol yochal tach mitzena, and therefore Zok the Mishnah Brura, in spite of the fact that it's kavod abrius, nevertheless, it's not decha deraisa, and therefore put the tefillin on before you put on the talis. As they passed into Mishnah Brura, b'halach l'maisa. Yes. I don't understand what you're asking.
What is the mitzvah of kissing the rosh?
No. I mean, the mitzvah of putting on the tzitzis, putting on the tefillin before you put on the talis. You're mechuyev to do that.
What are you going over?
Ein mavir ala mitzvahs. Ein mavir ala mitzvahs. True, but putting on in this. Are you asking on putting it on, or are you asking on kissing it? No. There's a deraisa that says that mitzvah habol yochal tach mitzena. Whichever comes to you first, you have to do. Therefore, Zok the Mishnah Brura, in spite of the fact that you may have bizyanis from it, you must put on the tefillin before you put on the talis. We have to get going. Zokt, this svara, that a mitzvah, unless it's in front of you, there's no problem of ein mavir ala mitzvahs, which means the Magen Avraham, we're arguing with the Magen Avraham. We're saying that the Magen Avraham is not correct in his application. The tefillin in a tefillin bag is not called in front of you. He's wrong, at least according to most Beiskin. But the Etzem Svara that the Magen Avraham is saying, that if the mitzvah is not in front of you, there's no ein mavir ala mitzvahs, that is a Svara Nechayna. L'maisa, we see another interesting tshuva from Rav Tzvi Pesach in a different place, or a Chaim Siman Nun Gimel, where Rav Tzvi Pesach uses such a svara. What's the shaila? Al das hasheila b'shnei bati knesiyos birachas yorech laver al pnei beis hakneses hakaroi v'oleches lehispalel b'beis hakneses hasheni harochik. Im yesh bazeh mishum ein mavin al mitzvahs. Let's say, Rabbi Isai, you live on Park Heights and Ford's Lane here. Okay? You walk to shul every Shabbos. Walk down Park Heights Avenue. Let's say you walk at least on this side of the street, right? Get to the Aguda shul. We don't daven in the Aguda. Weiter. Walk a couple blocks weiter, get to the Adas. You don't daven in the Adas. You want to daven in the Glen Avenue shul. Get to Glen Avenue, go to the Glen Avenue shul. Are you allowed to do that? Is that a shaila of an ein mavir and ala mitzvahs? Mitzvah haboli yoch al tach mitzana. You got to the shul. Here's a million ready, willing, and able. They're holding and davening. You're passing by the shul. Is that a problem of ein mavir and ala mitzvahs? So the Yaskil Avdi says, that's the Shoyal to Ritzi Pesach over here, says that you're only allowed to do this if you have two things going for you in the Glen Avenue shul. Number one, you have schar p'tzias. The longer you walk, the more schar you get, and you have mokum kavua. See, if you have mokum kavua, kol hakeveh mokum l'tilosa, you have schar p'tzias, that's enough that's enough to overweigh the fact that you're coming to that shul first. So Ritzi Pesach, that's the shaila Ritzi Pesach deals with, and Ritzi Pesach argues with the Yaskil Avdi, and he says, even if you don't have Mon Kavua, forgetting about Schar P'siyas, there's no problem of walking back past two shuls. There's no shaila of ein mavir ala mitzvah. Zok der Poshit. He says, I'll bring you a raya. It's muchach like that. The Gemara says in Mesech the Brachos, there's an halacha Gemara says you're not allowed to pass by a shul b'makom that the shul is davening. Why? Because it's as though you're denying, you don't believe in who the shul is praying to. Near a kaifer into whom they're being misfouled. As they say in the Gemara, Zok the Gemara, Amar Abaye, Loy Amaron, Elo Deleka Bekanishta Achviti. Avalika Bekanishta Achviti, less Lanva. Statement first in the Gemara. That halacha is, if there's only one shul in town and they're davening, you walk by it. So there it's a disrespect. It's some kind of a statement. I don't believe in this. But Zok the Gemara, if there are other shuls in town, Gesundheit, Azay Zok the Gemara. That's the way it's gepassed in Shulchan Aruch. The Heichad Yesh Beis HaKnesses Sheni Rashoy Mutter Lav Al Panei Beis HaKnesses. For Ritzi Pesach, that halacha flies in the face of Ein Mavir Ala Mitzvahs. Zok Ritzi Pesach Poshet. The Ikir Hadin Ein Mavir Ala Mitzvahs Leinemer Lebechi Agavne Shehamitzvah Kvar Muzmenes Lefona V'Kroive Hi Elo Laseise Belishim Pula Mukdemes. Ein mavir ala mitzvahs is only said when you have two mitzvahs that are muchan ready in front of you, they're staring you in the face. And you have to do one. So the halach is the one that you're pegeya and tchila. That's the one you should do. You have tzitzis and tefillin. Make sure you run into the tzitzis before the talis before you run into the tefillin. Why? They're mezum l'fanav. We're saying even if the tefillin are in a bag, it's called mezum l'fanav. Aber zakar tzvi pesach. V'chein b'chol mokom. Da'amidim avil ha'mitzvah. B'kulam ha'yisha mitzvah mezumenes l'asayis tekef. But Mashekin Bazeh Sha'iver Beder Halichosay Al Pei B'nei Sakneses Shadayin in Amokum Mukshal Elispal Sham V'chein Hu Mechusar Knisa Yesh Lodun De'ein Alochi Elihikanes V'chol Zman Shalai Nichnas Pidnimo Le'Karin and Beishu Mavar La Mitzvahs. Walking by shul is not the mitzvah l'fanecha. You just walk by, you have to go in. That's not called in front of you. That's not called in front of you. Einochinami. There's no din of ein mavin on it. That's what Tzim Pesach Kiddush. No problem whatsoever. Walk is unto hates. Mamish past 3 shuls, 5 shuls, doesn't make a difference. Why? The mitzvah isn't in front of you. Because you're not inside yet. You're mechusar going in. Mechusar going in is mechusar ma'asidam. It's not considered in front of you. As 8 times in Tzim Pesach. So, what's that? Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Some people go, let's say, to a shiur Shabbos morning in one shul, and then after some amount of time, they'll go down to another shul, so they're in the shul already.
Oh, so we'll even ask better. Let's say you go to these types of shuls that they have several minyanim going on simultaneously, right? So you walk into the base medrash, and it's hot. It's hot. Too hot in here. You want to go into a different. So light for Tzim Pesach, there you wouldn't be allowed to switch. Why? Because there the pshat is Bishleim walking outside. You haven't entered. There's still mechusar knisa. It's up there. That's called mechusar ma'isa. But once l'chayra you would to go into a shul, even in spite of the fact that maybe too crowded, or you realize it's a bar mitzvah, you don't want to stay or whatever it is, you want to go to a different place. Then you're not allowed to go in. Or these places that have minyanim silent, you have to go into the first room that you come by. Once you go in, let's say you have minyanim rooms within rooms. You can't go past the first room. Why? Because it's mitzvah b'liyah chatach mitzvah. L'chera zeikum tais. Or Tzim Pesach zocht a different svara. In the same tshuva, Tzim Pesach says a different svara of why here bichlal it's not shayach ein mavin al mitzvahs. Listen well. He brings a tesis in Masechta Menachos. Listen well. The Gemara says, tesis says in Masechta Menachos, quotes the Gemara in Zvachim, Gabi parv hapnimim disnan shiyarei hadom hayashepech al yisoid ma'aravi shel hamazmeach achitzeh. When you shechted a korban and you had to pour the blood, so the Mishnah says, Shiyare Hadam HaYashefech. If you say Korbanos in the morning, you know that Shiyare Hadam HaYashefech HaYisaid Ma'aravi Shel Mizbeach HaChitzon. So the Gemara asks, my time, why do you pour it on the western side of the Mizbeach? Da'amar Kra El Yisaid Mizbeach HaOyla Asher Pesach Oil Mayed. The Gemara Darshans, that's referring to the Yisayid Maravi. State Pasuk, that's where you have to spill the blood. As I talk the Gemara. Except the Gemara seemingly adds 3 more words. Hahuda Paga Bereisha. Because that's the place, after you finish shechting the korban, that's the place where you run into first. So Rashi over there says, Sok Rashi, Dimasher Pesach al-Moyed Doris Damashmi Yisoid Shekineged HaPesach V'zehu Ma'rovi Shal Mizbech Shekineged HaPesach HaHeichal. Zok Rashi, V'loi Garsida Nahuda Paga Bereisha. Zok Rashi, you're not garish those words of the Gemara, Hahuda Paga Bereisha, because that's where you run into first. The mashma mitamshim arbin al mitzvahs. Zok Rashi, if the Gemara brings a pasuk that tells you where to pour it, then you don't need a svara of hahu paga bereisha ein arbin al mitzvahs, because that's where you run into first. Hazei Zok Rashi. Perfect. This is a kasha. Higufa kasha. What do you mean you're not garish it? Why taka? Do you need a pasuk? Why need a pasuk to tell me where to pour it? Svara, why you have to pour it there. You know why you have to pour it on the western side of the Mizbeach? Because ahu paga bereisha. Because we know the rule of ein mavir ala mitzvahs. So Taisus asks, what's the pshat? What do you mean you're not garish it? Even if you're not garish it, but still it's shver. Why do I need a pasuk to tell me where to spill the blood? If the svara of ein mavir ala mitzvahs tells you where to spill the blood, azay frech Taisus. Zok Taisus. Umetartzen delei shayach ein mavir ala mitzvahs אלא כשיש שתי מצוות לפניו כגון דישן מזבח והמנורה כגון מצוות קרונס שאין ידוע מהיכן נמסחיל. אבל לקבוע המקום משפיע שיריים לא יקבלו מהתיימה אלוהי בכל יקרא בהדיין. Zog Teisvis. The Wizard Tzvi Pesach explains this Teisvis that Ein Mavirin Al Mitzvahs is a svar to tell you if I'm asking myself which mitzvah happens first, which mitzvah is chal first, which mitzvah goes into effect first. There, Ein Mavirin Al Mitzvahs can tell me which one is first. But what Teisvis is in effect saying is that when I have the mitzvah in my hand, and it's not a question of whether it's chal or not, it's been chal. The question is, where do I perform, on what spot do I perform the mitzvah? That Zok Teisvis is not an issue of Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs. Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs doesn't tell you where to do it. That's inconsequential. Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs tells you which one is chal first. Or if it's a shaila of on where place is chal the mitzvah, like the kronos on the mizbech, there it can tell you. But where you just have to pour it, and it's a question of where you pour it onto, Zok Teisvis, there's no klal of Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs. So Tzvi Pesach says, Ukishena'ayin nimsa the mitzvahs tfilu beis hakneses who means shvicha shirayim v'yisoid. So Tzvi Pesach, the analogy over here is the blood is to tefillah like the mokam hamizbeach is to the beis hakneses. I have a mitzvah to daven. You want to tell me I have to daven in a certain mokam because of Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs? So Pesach, Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs doesn't tell you that. Just like Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs doesn't tell you what mokam you have to spill it, Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs doesn't tell you what place you have to do the davening. And therefore, Zocher Tzvi Pesach, Bichlal, there's no svara that tells me that Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs, when I know there's a mitzvah that I have to daven already, it's just a question of where. The svara of Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs doesn't apply. So Zogin Mir that right, this svara that Tzvi Pesach says now over here, even if you were to walk into the shul, even if you were to come to the shul for a shearing, you don't want to daven here, or you would come in and you don't like the temperature in here, or whatever it is, you're allowed to leave. Why? Because here the pshat is the mitzvah is already chal on me. The question is, where should I do it? Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs doesn't tell me where I have to do it. That's what Tzvi Pesach Chiddush. So I saw, brought in the name of Lavush, something that, this is a Gabai's test. Let me ask you a shaila. You have to take out 2 Sifrei Torah. One for the Kriya of the Yom, and one for Maftir. Okay, let's make this interesting. It's Shabbos Parshas Noach, and it's Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. On Shabbos. So you have to read from one Sefer Parshas Noach, from one Sefer you have to read Parshas Pinchas, all the way by Midbar. They take out the 2 Sifrei Torah. Somebody makes a mistake, lo and behold, rather than putting on the shulchan the first Sefer Torah to Parshas Noach, they put on the shulchan, they put the Sefer Torah from Parshas Pinchas. They open it up, lo and behold, it's the wrong Sefer. What do you do? Hersel, you're a Gabbai.
Put it away and take the second one.
Zok Hersel, God, how many years are you a Gabbai? Zok Hersel, you roll it up, put it away, and take the first one. What do you say? Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs. Zok there Ein Marvin Al Mitzvahs. It's open. It's open. It's open, ready to read. The fact that it's not in the place you want it, that's not called mucha. That's mucha. Zok the levush. You roll up the Sefer Torah. and you put it away, and you take out the first Sefer Torah and you read from it. You're not goyel the Sefer Torah. You're not goyel disperse that Sefer Torah all the way from Pinchas back to now. You don't do that. You just merely roll it up, put it away, and take the first Sefer Torah. Azay zok the levush. Ein mafrin ala mitzvahs. The Teretz is, Rabbi said, this is mamish, an example of makayim. Because here the pshat is, you have a mitzvah of kriyas HaTorah. The question is the makom with which to do it, the sefer with which to do it. Ein Marvin al Mitzvah doesn't tell you that. Just like Ein Marvin doesn't tell you have to stay in the shul, it doesn't tell you where you have to, pour the blood. You need a plastic to tell you that. Hu adin, it doesn't tell, it's not kevet to you makom. And therefore, paskin to levush, like a roll up that sefer Torah, let the guy hold it, take out the first sefer Torah and read from there. Why? Because Ein Marvin al Mitzvah is only a story to tell you which mitzvah is chal on you first. There's tefillin, tzitzis, other times, Ein Marvin al Mitzvah. But here the pshat is the mitzvah kriyas HaTorah is there. Question for which one to do it with? Sok the levush b'chiyat gavna. There's no svara of Ein Marvin al Mitzvah.
What about the
Parsha Shlach has in it one of the most tragic incidents that we have in all of the Torah. The incident of the Meraglim. Every Tisha B'Av, in which we mourn the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, Atam b'chisem b'chia l'chinam, aniyech b'lachem b'chia l'deiros. Tragic incident. It's not only a tragic incident, but it's also a very difficult incident to understand. The Pasuk uses the Lashon Anoshim, that the Meraglim referred to as Kulam Anoshim. They were all Anoshim. Rashi brings, Chazal say, that is a connotation for people that were Chashuvim. The Gedolim, the leaders, the Manhigim. And therefore it's all the more difficult to understand how do these people who were, you're talking about a generation that had just witnessed Kabbalas HaTorah, Kriyas Yamsuf, Dordeya, and this was the creme de la creme, this was the cream of the crop of that generation. And yet they all fell down and became entrapped in the Lashon Hara and the Diba Ra, that they spoke disparagingly about Eretz Yisrael. So Chazal tell us in different sources, it's a Zohar, that what was happening over here was a lesson in koiches hanefesh of individuals, of how we human beings operate. And that is that the Zohar indicates that the people realized that their positions of chashivus that they had in the Midbar, when they would come into Eretz Yisrael, there would be a new order, so to speak. And any positions that one necessarily held while they were in the Midbar, all of that would fall by the wayside, and it would be a totally different setup, a totally different society. And therefore each of the Meraglim perceived that their entering into Eretz Yisrael would have a personal negative effect on them, in the sense that they would lose their position of authority. And that's how we human beings unfortunately work. We are influenced. Ki hashechad ya'aver einei chachamim v'salei divrei tzadikim. The Torah tells us that bribes can even affect the grest of chachamim. It can affect even the tzadikim. Shechad, a bribe. So normally we associate that in terms of money. Somebody slips you money, that's a bribe. But a bribe doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. There can be a bribe that's something that's distorting your vision in the sense that I'm going to lose my authority, I'm going to lose my chashivas. And therefore, given that subconscious feeling that each of them thought that here we're going to go into Eretz Yisrael and this is going to be the end of my day in the sun, so to speak. Therefore, everything that they saw was colored with these glasses of the dark colored glasses, and as a result of that, they came to speak ill of Eretz Yisrael. As they state in Mefarshim, So Rav Koleski told me over last Shabbos an interesting ha'ara. He told it to me in the name of one of the Hasidic rabbeim, but I forgot the name and I couldn't get in touch with Rabbi Koleski soon enough to find out exactly who it is, but be that as it may. There's a famous Targum Yonasan ben Uziel. Pasuk says, "Vayikra Moshe laHosea binun Yeshua." So the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel comments and says, why did Moshe Rabbeinu feel compelled to change Yeshua's name of Vayikra Moshe laHosea binun Yeshua? So state the very famous Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, "Kadchama Moshe amasanusei shel Yeshua." That when Moshe Rabbeinu saw the anivus of Yeshua, so therefore he wanted to make sure that he would not become wrapped up and ensnared in the eitz of the meraglim, so he gave him a bracha, ka yeshiacha miatzas hameraglim. What the Targum Yonasan is being meisif is, kadchama Moshe an vasanusa di Yeshua. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw the anivus of Yeshua, therefore he felt necessary to give him a special bracha that he shouldn't be trapped up and swept away with the eitzah of the other meraglim. Where was this? Kadchama Moshe an vasanusa de Yeshua. Where did Moshe Rabbeinu see this anivus that he thought, I have to make sure he's not going to become swept up in the tide? So he said over, we had in last week's parsha, that Eldad and Medad, there were two people, Eldad and Medad misnabin b'machana. So Shteit in Pasuk, that the Nar came and he told Moshe Rabbeinu, Adoni Moshe Kloe. Put them in jail. Arrest them. There are two people, Misnabim B'machane, Adoni Moshe Kloe. The Pasuk doesn't tell us who it is, but Chazal tells it was Yeshua. Yeshua said, arrest them. They're going around saying Nevuah. What's this? Azay Shlecht. What was so bad that they were saying Nevuah? Indeed, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Alavai, everybody should be Nevi'im. So Shteit in Chazal, their Nevuah was Moshe Meis, Yeshua Machnas. The Nevuah that they were suggesting is Moshe Rabbeinu is going to die, and it's Yehoshua that's going to lead the people into Eretz Yisrael. That's the last thing Yeshua wanted. The last thing Yeshua wanted is to be the Manik. Yeshua was the quintessential Talmud, the quintessential Mishares Moshe. As opposed to our leaders, Al Gore is just chomping at the bit. Masai Yova Liyadi V'Akaimena. I've been sitting there going to funerals for the last 8 years. When is it going to be my time? But that's not Yeshua ben Nun. Yeshua ben Nun is not interested in becoming demonic. He wants Moshe Rabbeinu to be man. Who's more roy than Moshe? Memela Yeshua ben Nun, when he heard Moshe Meis Yeshua Machnis, he was so offended by that. He says, Adoni Moshe Kloim. Put them in jail. Don't zog the Targum. Zog the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, Kadchama Moshe an vasanusa di Yeshua. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw the anivus of Yeshua, that Yeshua didn't want to be the Manik. He was happy that Moshe Rabbeinu should continue to be the Manik. So now it's understandable Moshe Rabbeinu's fear. Negias, when a person has a Negias can blind everyone. It can even blind the Yeshua. Yeshua also would have had a Negias, just like the other Meraglim. The other Meraglim didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because they would lose their covet. They would lose their position of authority. Yeshua ben Nun fakert. He may have not wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael. Because why? Because he would be the Manik. Moshe wouldn't be the Manik. So that fear, subconscious of course, he didn't think it through. But Moshe Rabbeinu saw, this is how Yoshua could become ensnared in the eights of the Meraglim. Everybody doesn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. They don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael because they're going to lose their covet. Yoshua ben Nun, the Anav, he may not want to go into Eretz Yisrael because Kol Zman they're in the Midbar. Moshe Rabbeinu is the Manik. Meila, Zok Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayikra Moshe, L'Hoshea ben Nun Yehoshua, Ko Yashiach HaMiyatzas HaMeraglim. You also need protection. You also have to be protected from the potential Negias. Not the Negias that you're going to lose your position, but your Negias, that you're a Beirech min HaKavod, that you want to run away from the position of authority. That perhaps will be your Negias. That's why I have to give you the bracha that you shouldn't be ensnarled in the eights of the Meraglim. What is so scary, Rabbi Isai, about this Chazal, and this is what every individual must tremble. If Yehoshua can be a Negeah and the Meraglim can be a Negeah, what are we going to say? Anan Manani Basrei. And this is why everyone needs a Rebbe, everyone needs a Madrich, everyone needs a spouse, everyone needs a Chaver, everyone needs some kind of outside perspective. Because we're all faced with decisions in life, and all too often there are all sorts of Negias, and some that we're aware of, some that we're not aware of. You know, we all make the statement, I know I'm in Negeah, but. Which means I know I'm in Negeah, but I'm going to overcome my Negeas. That's not true. If you know you're a Negeah, then you cannot trust your instincts. And you sometimes don't even know you're a Negeah. And that's why Asay l'charav, Knei l'chachover. You need an Ezer Kenegdai, not a person necessarily that's always going to say yes to what you're saying, but a person that sometimes is going to be the Kenegdai. Because if not, how are we going to be saved from the different negiasin and bribes that so often crop up in the vital decisions that we all have to make? So I want to end with a interesting ha'ara. Statement pasuk by the parsha from Tzitzis, Uschartem es kol mitzvahs Hashem. The Gemara says in Menachos, Hoya Rabbi Meir Omer, Man ishtana techeles b'kol minei tzivainim. Why are the Tzitzis techeles type of blue? Meishat techeles daima liyam, because the techeles look like the sea. B'yam daima l'rakia, the sea looks like the sky. V'rakia daima l'kisei hakavod. Therefore, you look at the Tzitzis, you'll think, looks blue. Ocean is blue. Sky is blue. Sky is like the Kisei HaKavod. You're going to think of the Kisei HaKavod. Pesach Takasha. Cut out the middle, man. Hold your sight. Why don't you just say, Tchelis is blue, because Tchelis is blue, and the Kisei HaKavod, the Shamayim is blue. Like, what do you need the whole parsha? Tchelis, go straight. Take life. So I saw how interesting ha'ara, because, like we said at the beginning of the shir, at the outset of the shir, in Avodas Hashem, you have to go b'hadraga. You have to go gradually. You can't chop it all at once. Unfortunately, we see all too many times that someone gets into something new, goes overboard. It's not well thought out. It's not well grounded. It's a fad. You assume more than you're able to accomplish, bite off more than you can chew. You're left with garnished. Chazal say, no, don't go like that. Go slowly. Small steps. Tchelis demel yam, that you can right away relate to. Another madregi, yam demel rakia, rakia demel malache, lakise hakov. Listen to the words. Oyol hamitzis ma'at ma'at, kefi asher tuchal lisbal. That's what the Rabbeinu Tam is saying. If you take on, you assume too much at once, you'll blind by garnished. Like we started out, you put on the talis before the tefillin. Malin b'kaidish. So the Mishnah Brewer, like we said, al ha'odam koi. Don't go tzu right away to the tefillin. First put on the talis. Achieve that madrega. Once you achieve that, then we go weiter. That's how Yid starts his day. You put the talis on, then you put the tefillin. You go gradually. That which goes gradually and bahadroga, and a person conquers and knows this is within his ability, that remains. You try to go to the top of the mountain without taking the middle steps, then you wind up crashing. Schartem es mitzvahs Hashem. Chelis dem l'yam, dam yem l'rakia, rakia yem dem l'kiseh hakavod. Lot.
For additional tapes by Rabbi Frand, please contact the Yad Yichil Institute at Post Office Box 511, Owings Mills, Maryland 21117. The phone number is area code 410-358-0416.
This year was presented by Rav Yissocher Frand June. You're listening to